You already know what you should be doing right now. Not in some vague, aspirational sense, specifically, precisely. The workout you've been negotiating with yourself about. The work you keep opening and closing without starting. The decision you've been circling for 3 weeks. The version of your day you planned last night that this morning has already quietly abandoned. You know, and you still haven't done it. This is not a laziness problem. Lazy people don't feel the gap. They don't lie awake reviewing the distance between where they are and where they decided they would be. The gap only hurts when you care, and you care. What you have is a system problem, not a motivation problem. Motivation is weather. It arrives and leaves without your permission. Not a willpower problem. Willpower is a tank with a hole in it. You start the day with a full tank, and by 3 p.m. it is empty. And every psychologist who has ever studied it has confirmed the same thing. Willpower is a depleting resource. It was never designed to carry you. What you need is what Marcus Aurelius built. Around 161 AD, a man became the ruler of the largest empire in the world. He had not asked for the position. He had been chosen by the emperor before him, trained for decades, and handed power over 40 million people at the age of 39. Within months of taking power, he was managing a catastrophic plague, 2 simultaneous wars on different frontiers, and a treasury that was running out of money. He never missed a day of being who he decided to be, not because he was born with iron discipline, because he had a system. A precise, daily, relentlessly applied system for building the kind of self-mastery that did not depend on how he felt. And he wrote that system down, not for us, not for posterity, in a private journal he never intended anyone to read, because the system required daily maintenance. What we call meditations is that maintenance manual. Today, we decode it completely. 10 disciplines, each one a specific mechanism, none of them motivational, all of them operational. Think like an emperor, move like a shadow. Discipline 1. Anchor everything to a single, precise identity statement. Most people approach self-discipline as a war against themselves, white-knuckling, resisting, fighting impulses. This is why they lose. The war model is wrong. It positions the disciplined behavior and the undisciplined behavior as equals, struggling for dominance. And in that framing, impulse almost always wins, because impulse is immediate, visceral, and certain, while the reward of discipline is abstract and distant. Marcus Aurelius did something different. Every morning, before anything else, he asked himself one question. Not, what do I need to do today? Not, what are my goals? He asked, what was I made for? And then he answered it, out loud, on paper, with the specificity of a man who had decided that the question was not philosophical, but operational. He wrote, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for? Is this what I was created for? To huddle under the blankets and stay warm. This is not motivational language. It is identity architecture. He was not reminding himself to be disciplined. He was reminding himself who he was. And who he was made the undisciplined choice feel not like temptation, but like a contradiction. Here is the psychological mechanism. Identity-based behavior does not require willpower. It requires only clarity. When a person has decided clearly who they are, not what they want, who they are, the behavior that contradicts that identity stops being a genuine option. It becomes a category error. A surgeon who has decided they are a surgeon doesn't deliberate about whether to wash their hands before an operation. It is simply what surgeons do. The identity makes the action automatic. The discipline problem most men have is not that they lack discipline. It is that they have not made the prior decision with enough precision and permanence. Who are you? Not who do you want to become. Who are you right now, declared and committed? Write that down. Then make every decision of the day answer to that identity rather than to how you feel. Discipline 2. Commit to the architecture, not the outcome. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Turn your desire to stone, quench your appetites, keep your mind centered on itself." This sounds like asceticism. It is
Not. It is engineering. Here is what he understood. The outcome of any goal is not fully in your control. Outcomes depend on variables you cannot account for. The market shifts, the body gets injured, the timeline moves. If your commitment is to the outcome, every variable that threatens the outcome also threatens your commitment, and your discipline becomes as fragile as your circumstances. What you can commit to, completely and without exception, is the architecture, the daily structure, the non-negotiable actions, the process that, if followed consistently, produces the outcome as a byproduct rather than a target. A Roman legionnaire did not commit to winning the battle. He committed to training every morning, maintaining his equipment, holding his position in formation. The victory was downstream of those commitments. His job was the architecture. The outcome took care of itself. There is a specific practical tool here. Before the week begins, identify 3 non-negotiable actions, the minimum viable architecture for the identity you declared in Discipline 1. Not an ambitious list. 3. The things that, if you do nothing else, confirm that you are still the person you decided to be. Then commit to those 3 as if they are physiological requirements, not goals, not intentions, non-negotiables. The standard that has no negotiation because the person you are has already decided. Everything above the minimum is bonus. The minimum is identity. Discipline 3. Show up especially when you don't want to. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You must build up your life action by action and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible, and no one can keep you from this." The most important training session, the most important work block, the most important hour is the one you show up for when you absolutely do not feel like it. Not because of the output of that session, because of what it confirms about you. Here is the mechanism that most productivity advice misses entirely. Every time you show up when the impulse says don't, you add a data point to your own internal evidence base. Over time, those data points accumulate into a belief, and eventually, you stop experiencing the question of whether to show up as a genuine question. The answer has already been decided by 1,000 previous answers. Conversely, every time you don't show up when you said you would, you add the opposite data point, and those accumulate too, into the private, shameful certainty that you are the kind of person who negotiates with yourself and usually loses. This is why consistency is not a productivity strategy. It is an identity strategy. Marcus showed up to his journal every morning during a plague, not because journaling was solving the plague, because the man who he had decided to be showed up. The war could wait 20 minutes. The empire could wait. His identity could not. One bad day does not define you. One missed session does not break the architecture. What breaks the architecture is the story you tell yourself after the miss. The man who misses once and immediately returns is building something. The man who misses once and decides it means something has handed his identity to a single data point. Miss, return, immediately. That is the protocol. Discipline 4. Make discomfort deliberate.
Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He owned multiple villas. He had access to the finest food, the softest beds, the most refined pleasures the ancient world could provide. Once a month, he slept on the floor. Not because the floor was good for his back, because he had made a precise calculation. A man whose comfort is his requirement has handed control of his state to his circumstances. And a man whose state is controlled by his circumstances is not free. He is a hostage to his own preferences. Seneca called it premeditatio malorum, the deliberate rehearsal of difficulty. Marcus called it voluntary hardship. The practice was the same. Regularly, intentionally, choose the harder option when the easier option is available. Cold water when hot water is there. The simple meal when the feast is offered. The physical challenge when rest is available. The mechanism is not punishment. It is calibration. When you have sat with genuine discomfort and discovered you can survive it, the gap between your best circumstances and your worst circumstances narrows psychologically. Discomfort loses its power to override.
Your decisions. The bad day, the cold morning, the difficult project. None of these can hold you hostage if you have already rehearsed what they feel like and confirmed that you function through them. The specific practice. Once a week, choose one deliberate hardship. A cold shower when the hot water is available. Skip the meal you were looking forward to. Go without the thing that you reach for automatically when you want to feel better. Not as punishment, as training. Comfort is not the enemy. Dependence on comfort is the enemy. There is a precise difference, and the practice of voluntary hardship draws that line with absolute clarity. Discipline 5. Stop spending energy on what you cannot control. Epictetus was born a slave. He spent the first part of his life with no legal rights, no freedom of movement, no control over the most basic conditions of his existence. He became the most psychologically free person in Rome. The mechanism he discovered, and what Marcus Aurelius later formalized as the foundation of his own discipline, is this. Every unit of mental energy you spend on circumstances outside your control is a unit stolen from the one place discipline actually lives, your response. Epictetus divided the entire world into two categories. What is up to you, your judgments, your choices, your effort, your response. What is not up to you, everything else. Weather, other people's behavior, outcomes, reputation, markets, health, all of it, outside your control, and therefore outside the appropriate domain of your attention. The discipline implication is direct. Every time you drain energy catastrophizing about an outcome, resenting a person's behavior, or fighting a circumstance you cannot change, you are operating at reduced capacity in the one arena where your discipline actually matters. You are losing not to the circumstance, but to your own misdirected attention. The practical test is blunt. When something disrupts you, ask, "Can I do something about this?" If yes, do it immediately and stop thinking about it. If no, categorize it, release it, and return your full attention to what is actually in your hands. This is not passive acceptance. This is energy conservation as a competitive advantage. The man who does not waste himself on what he cannot control arrives at what he can control with everything he has. That man is not competing with you on equal terms. Discipline 6. Eliminate the victim narrative completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do your job without whining." 4 words. The most direct instruction in all of meditations, and the most violated one. Here is what the victim narrative actually costs you at the psychological level. When you frame your circumstances as things done to you by your upbringing, your environment, your past, other people's choices,
You transfer the locus of control outside yourself. And once control is external, discipline becomes functionally impossible. Because discipline requires the belief that your actions determine your outcomes. The moment you have convinced yourself that your outcomes are determined by forces outside you, the rational case for disciplined action collapses entirely. This is not about whether external forces have genuinely shaped you. They have. Everyone's have. The question is not what shaped you. The question is, who is operating the controls now? Carl Jung identified the shadow, the parts of the self that we refuse to own, that we project outward, that we attribute to others or to fate. The victim narrative is shadow psychology in its most operationally destructive form. By refusing to own your contribution to your circumstances, you simultaneously refuse ownership of your ability to change them. The Stoic position is this: you may not be at fault for what happened. You are fully responsible for what you do next. Those are not the same thing. Fault is about the past. Responsibility is about the present. You cannot change the first. You have total sovereignty over the second. The discipline practice. For 1 week, eliminate every explanation for your current circumstances that places the cause outside yourself. Not to be delusional about real obstacles. To locate, with precision, the one variable in every situation that is actually within your control. Then act on that variable, every time, without commentary. Discipline 7. The ability to wait is a form of power. There is a test that has been run on
thousands of people, over 50 years of psychological research. A child is placed in a room with a single marshmallow. The researcher tells the child, "You can eat this now, or wait 15 minutes and receive 2 marshmallows." The children who waited, who demonstrated the capacity to delay gratification in that single moment, went on to have, on average, significantly higher incomes, better health outcomes, stronger relationships, and higher measures of life satisfaction than the children who ate the marshmallow immediately. 1 marshmallow, 15 minutes, 50 years of divergence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "So you were born to feel nice, instead of doing things and experiencing them? Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants and spiders and bees going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can, and you're not willing to do your job as a human being?" The capacity for delayed gratification is not a personality trait. It is a trained skill, and the training is specific. You build it by practicing it in small doses, deliberately, until the neural pathway that reaches for the immediate reward is gradually outweighed by the neural pathway that has experienced the superior reward of waiting. Start where the margin is thin. 1 hour without checking your phone. 1 meal without the thing you automatically reach for. 1 conversation where you wait an extra beat before responding. Each practice is not about the marshmallow. It is about building the circuitry that makes you someone who is not at the mercy of their own impulses. The man who cannot delay gratification is controlled by whatever offers the nearest reward. He is predictable. He is manipulable. He has handed his behavior to whoever designs the most immediate stimulus. The man who can wait is playing a different game entirely. And on a long enough timeline, delayed gratification does not just produce better outcomes, it produces a different kind of man. Discipline 8. Other people's opinions are not your business. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, go to their souls, penetrate inside and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they should hold any particular opinion about you." This is not a teaching about self-confidence in the conventional sense. It is a teaching about where psychological energy belongs. Here is the mechanism. When you orient your behavior toward the management of other people's perceptions,
You have made their opinion the governing variable of your life. You are not building according to your own blueprint. You are building to please an audience whose tastes change constantly, whose approval cannot be secured permanently, and whose judgment of you is fundamentally a function of their own psychology rather than your actual worth. The naysayer, the person who criticizes every attempt at growth, every declaration of direction, is not an obstacle to your discipline. They are a test of whether your discipline belongs to you or to them. If their disapproval is enough to stop you, then your discipline was never truly yours. It was performance, and performance requires an audience. Epictetus. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish. Wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. Apply this specifically to other people's opinions. They will have them. You cannot control them. You can control whether you allow those opinions to enter the decision-making process of your own life. The practical filter. Whose feedback actually improves your performance? Name those people specifically. Their input belongs inside the process. Everyone else's opinion belongs outside it, not because it doesn't exist, but because it has not earned the right to the real estate of your attention. Protect that real estate with the same precision that Marcus protected Rome's borders. Discipline 9. Build your environment before you need your willpower. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It will even do to socialize with men of good character, in order to model your life on theirs, whether you choose someone living or someone from the past." This is perhaps the least discussed Stoic discipline and the most operationally powerful one. Willpower, as we established, is a depleting resource. Environment is not. Environment is a constant, and the person who engineers their
environment deliberately never has to fight their environment with willpower, because the environment is already working for them. The people you are around most determine the behavioral baseline you are measured against, the standards that feel normal, the level of effort that seems required, the version of success that is considered average. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." This is not elitism. It is environmental engineering. You are not choosing your friends based on social status. You are choosing your psychological ecosystem based on what it demands from you. But Marcus goes further. Whether you choose someone living or someone from the past, the role model does not have to be physically present. The discipline of studying how a specific person operated, their daily habits, their decision frameworks, their response to adversity, installs a behavioral template in your mind that begins to influence your choices without requiring conscious deliberation. Who is the person whose level of discipline you want to operate at? Find them, dead or alive. Study how they worked. Study their daily architecture. Ask not what they achieved, but how they showed up on the days when showing up was hard. Then build your days to answer to that standard. You will not rise to your ambitions. You will fall to your environment. Engineer the environment first. Discipline 10. End every day with a ruthless, honest accounting. Seneca wrote this in a letter to his friend Lucilius, describing his own nightly practice. "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of the habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." This is the most advanced and most underused discipline in all of Stoic philosophy. Not journaling as venting, not journaling as goal tracking. A forensic self-examination, the kind of honest accounting that most men avoid because it reveals the gap between who they say they are and who they actually were today. Marcus did the same, every evening, with the same rigor he would apply to a military after-action review. What happened?
What was my response? What was the quality of my decision at that moment? Where did the discipline hold? Where did it fail? What will I do differently tomorrow? Here is why this practice produces results that no other discipline can replicate. It closes the feedback loop. Every undisciplined behavior you engage in and never examine simply gets repeated. The pattern has no mechanism for correction. But every behavior you examine honestly, without self-pity and without self-flagellation, becomes data, and data can be used. The evening review is not self-punishment. Seneca was explicit about this. Be gentle with yourself. The goal is clarity, not condemnation. The man who beats himself up for every failure spends his energy on shame rather than adjustment. The man who examines failures with the cold, clear eye of an engineer extracts the lesson and applies it to tomorrow. 3 questions, every night, no exceptions. What did I do today that was consistent with who I have decided to be? What did I do that wasn't? What specific adjustment will I make tomorrow? Not paragraphs, 3 answers. Then close the journal. The day is complete. Tomorrow is not yet determined. Between those 2 facts lives every ounce of power you have. Here is what connects all 10 disciplines, and it is the thing the original architects of Stoic philosophy understood that almost every modern interpretation of it misses. Self-discipline is not the act of overcoming yourself. It is the act of becoming yourself so completely that there is nothing left to overcome. The man who fights his impulses every day is not a disciplined man. He is an exhausted man. Discipline that requires constant combat is not sustainable. It is a war of attrition, and eventually, the impulse wins by outlasting the effort. What Marcus Aurelius built was different. He built an identity so clearly defined, a daily architecture so precisely maintained, a self-examination so ruthlessly honest, that the undisciplined choice stopped presenting itself as a real option. Not because he suppressed it, because who he was had already answered the question before the impulse could ask it. That is not willpower. That is psychological sovereignty.
The emperor, who could not be governed by impulse, governed 40 million people, not despite his self-mastery, because of it. You do not need a better motivation. You do not need a better system. You need to make the prior decision, who you are, clearly enough that the system becomes an expression of that identity, rather than a cage you're trying to hold yourself inside. Make that decision. Then build your days to answer to it. Not once, daily, without exception, without negotiation, without waiting for the right feeling. Think like an emperor. Move like a shadow. Tell me in the comments, which of these 10 disciplines exposes the gap in your life right now? Not the easiest one to admit, the real one. Because naming it is the first movement. Everything else follows from there.